You got David and Goliath.
Come on.
You got Joshua.
All right.
You got stories, but all those stories talk about how when people rise up together.
Come on.
When people fight together.
Come on.
Change comes.
And we are still sticking to the Stacey Abrams case study. Her campaign for Georgia governor was quite extraordinary. Firstly, it was like a Hollywood script. Abrams would be the first black female governor in the U.S. Abrams would be the first woman governor in Georgia. But on top of all of this, she had some very, very influential people endorsing her campaign, like former U.S. President Barack Obama and Oprah Winfrey.
I'm here today because of Stacey Abrams. And I'm here today because of the men and because of the women who were lynched, who were humiliated, who were discriminated against, who were suppressed, who were repressed and oppressed for the right for the equality at the polls. And I want you to know that their blood has seeped into my DNA, and I refuse to let their sacrifices be in vain.
But Abrams still lost with such backing. How do you lose when you get a vote and you get a vote and everybody gets a vote? How do you lose? How do you lose an election? Joining us to discuss this issue is Vincent Magwenya. He is the founder and CEO of Conversations Media and Communications. He is a brand communications expert as well. And Tankiso Makhene from Roth Media. He's a senior PR and brand manager. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Tankiso, let me start with you.
Sure.
How do you lose an election when you have an endorsement from a multi-billionaire, probably the most influential female to be alive at the moment?
I mean, I think it was, they tried to just play on what Oprah had done for Obama, and I don't think it was a wise thing as such, because as much as you want an influencer like Oprah, it is about the message that you're trying to put across.
Yeah.
And sometimes it does just not translate as it should.
Vincent, do you agree with that? Is the message very important?
The message is important, but I have a slightly different take on this particular case study.
Yeah.
I think if you look at the strategy of that campaign, it was around getting young people to vote who ordinarily do not participate.
Yeah, lots of new voters.
In midterm elections.
Yeah.
And also Georgia has a particular history with black voters that you can trace back to post-World War II, when servicemen came back from World War II and were denied the right to vote based on their skin color. So she was trying to address issues of voter participation, and she incorporated that element as part of her strategy to drive out young people to vote, and that's how we saw people like John Legend, Oprah Winfrey coming into the fold. So there was a very clear strategy around it, which is very important.
But when you have the likes of Obama who endorses your campaign, Oprah Winfrey endorses your campaign, and here's the thing about that, though, is that when Oprah Winfrey says, I love this book, that book becomes a bestseller. But why is it when Oprah Winfrey says, vote for Stacey Abrams? She was even doing a door-to-door campaign for Stacey Abrams. Why didn't that translate into voting for Stacey Abrams? Or could it be a case of what Bernie Sanders says, that white people are just uncomfortable?
So now you get to the realms of politics in Georgia.
Yeah.
It's a very conservative southern state, one with a very long history of the civil rights movement. We then get into the issue of about 53,000 voters whose registration was held back by Brian Kemp, who's the state Secretary of State in charge of the elections, as well as the candidate. So there were those issues. So we don't know if those 53,000 voters, for example, had they been able to participate, what would have happened, what would have been the outcome. She was shy of about 60,000 votes in total. So
it was close. It was close. It was a close race. Thank you. So let's speak about what happens in SA.
Yeah.
Was it the 2014 elections or the 2016 elections where we had the with the ANC in Asnavalo
campaign?
Asnavalo campaign. So the ANC then goes out, gets celebrities to be part of the campaign. Does it then pay off?
You see, the problem with that also is that in South Africa, when we see influencers, we think they got paid. So you also play on now, is this authentic? Do these people...
Because you need to weigh that up, right?
Yeah.
Whether this person has been paid to say, yes, I vote ANC.
I vote, yeah. So I think also that is a very tricky situation for them, is that as much as, yes, I might love a certain celebrity, I might love Bonang, but does she speak to the same values as I do, you know? And is she getting paid? You know, why is she doing this? So the reasons behind why she's doing something might also play to me.
Why is it then the case when it comes to branding, let's say a certain product like Nike, for instance? If Bonang endorses Nike, Nike sells.
Because maybe then I aspire to be what Bonang lives. Her lifestyle might be something that I aspire to. So,
but you might not agree with the politics.
But I might not agree with what she believes in. I might not believe in her values and how she sees politics. So I think that's just where, you know, the two questions come in. That do I now vote because Bonang is saying this? Does it speak to where my mother is? Does it speak to, you know, the history of where we come from as a nation?
Vincent, you worked on the CR17 campaign.
I assisted on that campaign.
You assisted in that campaign.
I don't want to give myself too much credit.
Yeah. What was the strategy behind that campaign? And I also want you to take in consideration what Ben Chirok actually said earlier on while speaking to Karima Brown about the Americanization of campaigning in the ANC.
So before I get to that question, we have to appreciate the dynamics when we draw parallels with the United States.
Yeah.
In the United States, celebrities do not only bring their celebrity power into the campaign, they also bring their money.
Yeah.
They volunteer their time and they contribute significantly. In South Africa, often celebrities have to be paid in order to endorse a campaign, whether it's happening in the private sector with a particular product or even in politics. You've seen stories where certain musicians lament in public breach of contract where they've not been paid, right? So it's a different dynamic. To Tankiso's point, that's where people then begin to question the authenticity of that campaign. Coming back to your question, the CR17 campaign was quite simple. It was really around the unity of the ANC, number one. So that was quite key. Secondly, it was, you know, rebuilding or reestablishing the confidence in the country that had been lost over the last 9 years or so for a number of reasons. And a lot of those reasons had a lot to do with inter-party dynamics within the ANC itself. And so in a nutshell, the campaign centered around those issues, that candidate Ramaphosa was the right person at the time, or still is, to bring that unity within the party.
Before I let you go, I'm sorry, Vincent, you know this has been a topical issue. I'm sure you've been expecting it, that it might come. Busasa. Yes. Did you guys know that the campaign had some money coming from Busasa? We
were not involved insofar as liaising with campaign contributors. Okay. That's number one. Number two, so we wouldn't have known that there was money coming from Busasa specifically. So there was a separate team of people that were responsible for handling donor funds and donations. So we did not know.
Okay then, perfect. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you as well as Vincent. It has been a great discussion. Well, we've come to the end of that discussion, and after the break, a South African exclusive, never been done before. NDPP candidates interviewed, and on top of that, that is live on TV after the break.